Who runs Japan? If you look at the television, the answer seems obvious. It is the Prime Minister. He stands at the podium, surrounded by flags, making grand promises about reform, about the future, about a new capitalism. But if you look at the history books, you will see a different story. Since the end of World War II, Japan has rotated through prime ministers faster than almost any other developed nation. Faces come and go. Cabinets are formed and dissolved. Scandals break and leaders resign. To the outside world, this looks like chaos. It looks like a democracy that cannot make up its mind. But here's the strange part. Despite this constant political turbulence, Japan itself does not change. The foreign policy remains identical. The economic framework remains rigid. The regulations that govern daily life remain set in stone. How is it possible to have so much chaos at the top, but so much stillness at the bottom? The answer is that the person you see on TV is not the driver. He is the hood ornament. The car is being driven by someone else entirely. Someone you did not vote for. Someone you cannot fire. And someone who has no intention of changing course. Welcome to the world of the shadow shoguns. In the West, we call them bureaucrats. The word sounds boring. It sounds like paper pushers and clerks. But in Japan, the bureaucracy is not a support staff. It is the ruling class. They are the Kasumigaseki elite. While politicians spend their time shaking hands, attending karaoke parties, and begging for votes in their local districts, the bureaucrats are in Tokyo running the machine. They are the memory of the state. They are the immune system that rejects any virus of change. To understand how they control the nation, we must look at how a law is made. In a standard democracy, a politician is elected with a vision. He drafts a bill, debates it, and passes it. In Japan, this process is inverted. Most Japanese ministers, the leaders of the Ministry of Finance, or Transport, or Defense, are amateurs. They are career politicians who are given a cabinet post as a reward for loyalty to their party faction. They often have zero knowledge of the department they are supposed to lead. Imagine a man who has spent 30 years organizing local festivals and building roads in the countryside suddenly being named the Minister of High-Tech Economy. He walks into his massive office in Tokyo on day one, and he is completely lost. But waiting for him is the Administrative Vice Minister. This is the highest-ranking bureaucrat. He has graduated from the law faculty of the University of Tokyo, the Todai elite. He has worked in this specific building for 35 years. He knows every regulation, every tax code, and every skeleton in the closet. The deal they make is simple. The bureaucrat says to the politician, "You want to survive? You want to avoid looking stupid in parliament? Then read what we write." This is not an exaggeration. In the Japanese diet, when the opposition asks the minister a difficult question, the minister does not answer from his own mind. He waits. A bureaucrat rushes over, hands him a slip of paper, and the minister reads it word for word. These are called Sifuien, government committee members. They script the questions, and they script the answers. The legislative branch of Japan is essentially a theater production. The politicians are the actors, reciting lines to make the public feel like democracy is happening. But the scriptwriters, the directors, and the producers are all bureaucrats. They write the laws to expand their own power. They write the regulations to protect their own jurisdiction. And because the laws are so complex, written in a dense, archaic legal Japanese that normal people cannot understand, only the bureaucrats know how to interpret them. They hold the monopoly on reality. But power is nothing without money. And this is where the system becomes truly dark. This is the mechanism known as the Iron Triangle. It is a three-sided prison that locks Japan in the past. The three sides are the politicians, the big business conglomerates, and the bureaucrats. Here is how the money flows. The politicians need votes and campaign funds. The business leaders need government contracts and favorable regulations. The bureaucrats need what? They need a future. This brings us to the most controversial concept in Japanese society, Amakudari. Literally translated, it means descent from heaven. In the Japanese civil service, the competition is brutal. You enter the ministry at age 22. You work 18-hour days. You sacrifice your family life, your health, and your soul for the prestige of the ministry. But the pyramid is steep. By the time you reach age 50, if you have not been promoted to the very top, you are forced to resign. This is the custom. You retire early to make way for the younger generation. But you are only 50 years old. Your government pension is small. How will you survive? This is where heaven opens its doors. The ministry that you worked for arranges a new job for you. You descend into the private sector. You become a senior director at a construction company. You become an advisor at a bank. You become a chairman at an insurance firm. And what is your qualification? It is not your business skill. It is your phone book. The private company hires you at a massive salary because you know the people back in the ministry. You know which permits will be approved. You know where the next highway will be built. You are the bridge between the regulators and the regulated. This creates a conflict of interest that creates a rot at the core of the economy. If you are a bureaucrat in the Ministry of Transport and your job is to inspect a car company for safety violations, are you going to be tough? Are you going to shut them down? No. Because that car company is your future employer. If you are too strict today, you will not have a descent from heaven tomorrow. So, you look the other way. You bury the scandal. You protect the company because you are protecting your own retirement plan. This system explains why Japan looks the way it does. Have you ever traveled to the rural Japanese countryside? You will see rivers that have been completely encased in concrete. You will see massive, 4-lane bridges connecting 2 tiny villages with a population of 50 elderly people. You will see tunnels drilled through mountains that save only 2 minutes of driving time. Japan pours more concrete per square meter than almost any other nation on Earth. Why? Not because the country needs more roads, but because the system needs to eat. The Ministry of Construction holds the budget. They give the contracts to the giant construction firms, the Zenikin. The construction firms hire the retired bureaucrats via Amakudari. And then, the construction firms funnel a portion of that profit back to the politicians in the form of party donations or guaranteed votes from their workers. It is a perpetual motion machine. Taxpayer money goes in one end, and political power comes out the other. The result is a Dokunkaka, a construction state. A nation that is addicted to building things it does not need, simply to keep the money flowing through the hands of the shadow shoguns. The tragic irony is that while Japan was building bridges to nowhere, the rest of the world was building the digital economy. Japan was pouring concrete while Silicon Valley was writing code. And the bureaucrats didn't notice because concrete is easy to control. The internet is not. This brings us to the modern crisis. The reason why your fax machine still exists to in the 21st century, data is the new oil. Efficiency is the new currency. But in Japan, the government is fighting a war against the digital age. Until very recently, almost all official government business required a physical stamp, called a hanko. You needed to print a paper, stamp it with red ink, and physically hand it to a person. Why? Japan makes the PlayStation. Japan makes robotics. Why is the government stuck at 1980? It is not technological incompetence. It is deliberate resistance. Digitization is the enemy of the bureaucrat. Digitization creates a digital trail. It creates transparency. If a process is automated, you don't need a bureaucrat to stamp it. If data is open, you don't need a specialist to interpret it. Transparency destroys the black box. If the public can see exactly how decisions are made, the shadow shoguns lose their mystique. They lose their discretionary power. So, they sabotage it. When the government tried to launch a national ID card system, the ministries refused to share data with each other. They protected their silos, like feudal lords protecting their castles. When they launched a digital agency to modernize the country, who did they hire to run it? They hired bureaucrats from the Ministry of Internal Affairs. It is the wolf guarding the hen house. They are in charge of dismantling the very system that gives them power. And surprise, surprise, the dismantling never happens. So, where does this leave Japan? The country is currently like a massive, beautiful, intricate clockwork mechanism. It is polished. It is polite. It runs on time. But the mechanism was built for a world that no longer exists. It was built for the industrial age, for the age of steel and concrete and predictable growth. It was not built for the age of AI, rapid innovation, and declining populations. The shadow shoguns are not evil men in a comic book sense. They believe they are the guardians of the nation. They believe that politicians are too stupid and voters are too emotional to run the country. They believe that only they, the best and brightest, can steer the ship. But their obsession with control has paralyzed the nation. They have created a society that cannot pivot. They have created an economy that cannot take risks. They are steering the supertanker with absolute precision, keeping the engines running perfectly, polishing the brass on the deck, while heading straight for the demographic iceberg. The tragedy of Japan is not that it lacks solutions. The tragedy is that the people who hold the keys to the solution are the ones who created the problem. As long as the real decisions are made in the backrooms of Kasumigaseki by men who are accountable to no one, the sun will continue to set on this economic giant. The facade of democracy will continue. The elections will be held. The prime ministers will change. But the shadow shoguns remain. And in their silence, they scream the loudest truth of all. In Japan, power never changes hands. It just changes faces. This is just one layer of the hidden Japan. If you want to understand the forces that are really shaping this vanishing country, make sure you are subscribed. We are going deeper into the darkness in the next episode.